Gai-mariagal, Gai-mariagal. They're the two names that I was given as a child. Through my grandmother and through my mother, I'm connected to this land. When I was born, my placenta and my umbilical cord were actually processed by my grandmother and by one of my aunties because they thought I was going to die. I was actually born in the Coloured and Asiatics ward, which was an old army building at the front of Royal North Shore Hospital, which is just down the hill from here. And there was a tree, there was an ironbark, a rough bark, you know, the real thick bark ironbarks, the redwood. Yeah, that's where my umbilical cord and that was placed. So sadly, that's now gone, but it's still in the land. So I've got a very strong connection here. The environment around here was an open forest, and apart from the cleared areas where the border rings were, and around the border rings there was, this is prior to European occupation of course, it was quite thick, the scrub that was around there, purely to hide the border ring, and also so when you danced of a night time, the vision of the dancing couldn't be seen by people that it shouldn't be seen, like young children and things like that. But it was an open woodland right through this country. It was grey box, yellow box, scribbly gum, and of course the most important tree, Angophora. And the Angophoras, it was a thick Angophora forest all through here. Probably the more important association is the Bora ground, which is right here where the TAFE college is built. The main Bora rings are directly to my right, and from the main Bora ring under the TAFE college there was a tunnel that went across there, but what's really important is this was all open forest, and this contained, you know, your scribble gum, your different boxes, and also your Angophora forest, which went around. And there was a pathway that was covered up that went right around, roughly to where the grey building is right behind me, which is a part of Royal North Shore Hospital. So on the highest point there, that's where the other Bora ring was connected. And the spring that fed it all went from roughly where that bunya tree is. There's a wet soak there, the other side of the road, and it comes down and it goes all the way around the valley line, down right through the cricket field, and then down and runs parallel to what the train line is. It used to run down under the highway. There's a couple of ochre sites around, and there's a big rock ledge on the other side of the highway, down over the back of the hill, and that was where, during bad weather, that's where they would shelter. Well, if we go back one stage before cemetery, this was always a burial ground for ashes, because when you've got corroboree, you've got people coming together and people will die. And despite what you may read, the exotic historians, the hysterical historians, we did not take our bodies back to where we came from. The bodies were cremated where you died. So the body was placed in the Angophora tree, and they were placed in the boughs. The spirit would go back into the tree and go to the heavens, and the next day the body would be burnt. And then after that, the bones would be taken out 24 hours later out of the fire pit, and the bones would either be wrapped up in a piece of bark and put up in a hollow tree, or they'd be put in the rock ledge over the back here. And 12 months later, when there was ceremony again, those bones would be brought out, put in the fire, and then powdered up, and the next of kin or the spouse would wear that over their body until the next rain washed it off. So, because they'd smash the bones up into white powder, and then you'd wear them on your body. So, so this has always been a burial site. From my understanding from my grandmother, from the early recession in the 1895 period, trams went past here and people would come in from the inner city areas to here because it was an active cemetery and it was seen as a very important cemetery, and of course the Aboriginal sites. So between 1895, a little bit, if there were stillbirths or there was a child died young, the baby would be brought here and interned here, and that would be not official. And then that picked up during the Depression because because of malnutrition and disease, there was a lot more babies. And these babies came from areas such as Baralla, Regents Park, Sefton. They're the family members that I know of that interned their children here. And then that picked up through the 1930s, 1940s, and it was used right up till the 1950s. So I actually was involved one day when my grandmother brought me here in the late 1950s, about 58 or 59. And we were brought here, and one of the old aunties from, I think she was from Regents Park, and she had a shopping basket, and you know, I was innocent, didn't understand, and all the other aunties are there, and they're all crying and, you know, sad. And then from the shopping basket, she had a baby wrapped up in her best things, you know, and I couldn't understand why they would bury a child in the best hand-knitted woolen blanket, and because they were so highly prized by us. Anyway, and then she dug a hole down near one of the graves. The women all sat around so no one could see it, and this place was almost empty even then. And she dug a hole, interred a baby, and they covered it up, and then they planted grass and things over the top so you didn't know it was there. So it was totally gone. So that's when I really was told the story about the internment of children here. So as a youth, you know, we would come here all the time. There was always one of our family in the hospital. Royal North Shore Hospital has always been close to us. Not only have I been born there, but most of my siblings, my cousins, you know, there's been a long association with it.